It was hidden for 3,000 years. Experts said it never existed. But one man believed a poet and discovered something that should have been impossible to find. Using Homer's Iliad and Odyssey as a guide, Heinrich Schliemann discovered the legendary city of Troy. One of the ancient world's most powerful citadels, perched high up on a strategic hill in northwestern Anatolia, near the entrance to the Dardanelles in what is now Turkey. From around 3000 BCE to 500 CE, this city rose, fell, and rose again, built and rebuilt at least 9 times, each new Troy rising from the ashes of the last. At its height during the Bronze Age, it was a thriving commercial hub. Its massive limestone walls, 30 feet thick, enclosed a royal palace, temples, and the homes of wealthy merchants and nobles. The city controlled vital trade routes between Europe and Asia, growing rich by taxing ships that passed through the straits and profiting from the tin trade essential for making Bronze Age weapons and tools. But Troy was more than just a trading post. It was a cultural crossroads where Greek, Anatolian and Hittite civilizations met and mingled, creating a cosmopolitan city that would become the setting for one of history's greatest legends. The most famous of which, and the one young Schliemann read about, was the result of the Trojan War, immortalized in Homer's Iliad. And who was Homer? Homer was an ancient Greek poet, traditionally credited with composing the Iliad and the Odyssey, 2 foundational works of Western literature. These epic poems tell the stories of the Trojan War and Odysseus's long journey home. Almost nothing is certain about Homer's life. What is undisputed is the massive influence these epics had on literature, storytelling, and culture for nearly 3 millennia. According to his Iliad and Odyssey, a coalition of Greek armies laid siege to the city for 10 long years, all because Paris, a Trojan prince, had abducted Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, from her Greek husband. The city's fall came through cunning rather than force. The Greeks built an enormous wooden horse, hid their best warriors inside, and pretended to sail away in defeat. The Trojans, believing the horse was a sacred offering, dragged it through their gates. That night, the hidden soldiers emerged, opening the gates for the Greek army, who put Troy to the torch. The city burned. Its men were slaughtered. Whether Greek armies actually besieged Troy, whether there was really a Helen, we may never know. But something terrible happened to the city around the time Homer's epic described, and it was reduced to ruins. These tales captivated the young mind of Heinrich Schliemann, who, when 10 years old, received an illustrated copy of Homer's Odyssey showing Troy in flames. Little Heinrich looked at those massive walls and thought, these can't just disappear. You must still be buried somewhere. And so he made a promise to himself. And for the next 36 years, while the entire world told him he was wasting his time and that Troy was just a myth and that Homer never existed, he never let go of that dream. Heinrich Schliemann was born in 1822 in Germany. He became a successful businessman who had made his fortune in various ventures around the world. But beneath his commercial success burned the obsession that consumed him since childhood, finding the legendary city. Where most scholars saw myth and metaphor, Schliemann saw literal truth. While the academic world dismissed Homer's Iliad as mere poetry, the adult Schliemann studied every line with the fervor of a detective examining evidence. He believed that Homer's epic revealed geographical clues that would lead him to the actual site of ancient Troy, treating Homer's text as a guidebook. He analysed descriptions of the landscape and mapped out the movements of Achilles, Hector, and the other heroes as if they were real people who had walked real ground. Academics thought he was insane, but he didn't care. He had something more powerful than their approval: absolute conviction. And he had someone who absolutely believed in him, Sophia, his Greek wife and collaborator. Where others saw foolishness, she saw vision. She encouraged his literal interpretation of Homer, believing, as he did, that the great poet had preserved actual memories of actual events. She stood by him through years of ridicule from the academic establishment and supported his decision to invest his entire fortune in what many considered as a fool's errand. Together they pored over ancient texts and planned an expedition that would excavate what they believed would be the most significant archaeological site in history. In 1870, Schliemann, Sophia, and an army of local hired hands began digging at Hisarlik, a hill in northwestern Turkey that matched Homer's geographical descriptions. He walked the terrain, timed the distances Homer described. Nothing else fit. Everything aligned. According to the ancient poet's words, he had identified this site as the location of ancient Troy. His methods were crude, impatient, reckless, destroying much as he carved a massive trench through the hill, destroying layers of history in his haste to reach the Troy of his dreams. He worked tirelessly alongside Sophia, who proved to be as dedicated an excavator as her husband. Sophia was on the ground, making the discovery possible. But they needed results. They needed vindication. They needed to find Troy. For 3 years they dug. They found ruins, multiple cities actually, built one upon another over the centuries. But which one was Homer's Troy? Where was the proof? Then in June 1873, Schliemann spotted something glinting in the dirt near a fortification wall. It was gold. Together with Sophia, they uncovered a precious hoard that would cement his place in history. Gold cups, diadems, bracelets, nearly 9,000 gold rings, silver vessels, weapons, the wealth of a legendary king. Deep in the excavation that he immediately declared to be Priam's treasure, the royal hoard of Troy's legendary king. And then came the moment that would become iconic. Schliemann adorned Sophia with the ancient jewellery, calling her Helen Reborn. The photograph of her wearing these 3,000-year-old treasures spread around the world. The reactions were explosive. Some saw poetry, the new Helen wearing the old Helen's jewels, a connection across millennia. These were national treasures being paraded around by foreigners. The academic establishment saw it as proof that Schliemann cared more about fame than proper methodology. But the discovery vindicated his faith in Homer's literal truth and transformed him from a ridiculed amateur to an archaeological celebrity. The experts who'd mocked him for decades had to admit the amateur was right. Schliemann's story reveals the power of believing in the historical truths within literature. His willingness to take Homer at his word, encouraged by his wife's unwavering support, led to one of archaeology's most celebrated discoveries. But modern scholars debate whether he actually found the Troy of Homer's epic. The treasure he found dated to around 1,000 years too early to be from the Trojan War. In his excitement to prove Homer right, Schliemann actually dug through the layer that was probably Homer's Troy, destroying much of it in his haste to go deeper. But there is no question that his excavations revealed genuine Bronze Age civilizations and opened a new chapter in our understanding of the ancient world. His literal reading of Homer led him to Troy, but his impatience to prove the poet right also led him to destroy valuable archaeological evidence in his haste to dig deeper. But the discovery came at a cost. It destroyed their marriage. But his health was failing too, and in 1890, against doctor's orders, he went for a walk after surgery for an ear infection, and he collapsed and died in a Naples street. Thousands attended his funeral. The archaeological world that had mocked him suddenly realized what they had lost. Today the site of Hisarlik is recognized as ancient Troy, and Schliemann is remembered as the man who proved that Homer's epic had roots in historical reality. The treasure he smuggled out? It ended up in Berlin but was seized by the Soviet Union during World War II. Today it sits in Moscow's Pushkin Museum, but Turkey wants it back. Schliemann's quest reminds us that the line between myth and history is often thinner than we imagine, and that sometimes the most extraordinary discoveries come from taking ancient stories seriously. One just has to be bold enough to believe that some legends might just be true. So every time someone tells you, oh, that's just a myth, remember Heinrich Schliemann and Sophia, and that there may be truth just waiting to be uncovered. Thanks very much for watching and listening. I hope you enjoyed this gripping yarn. Please like and subscribe. It helps the channel. I look forward to welcoming you again to Gripping Yarns. Till next time.